The Super Bandit has returned from paint, made its journey from the west coast of Canada back here to the shop, and we are ready to start putting this thing together. The build is complete. The assembly is starting now. So let's get organized and get this dripping wet BVM Super Bandit put together and ready for Tucson jets. So just give you a couple close-ups here of the aircraft. LGM Graphics in British Columbia, Canada did this paint job for us, and Jeremy did an amazing job. It looks absolutely stellar. It's all polished up and beautiful, and obviously the surfaces aren't on yet, but looks amazing. I'll throw a shot of the underside of the wings. We've got a checker pattern on our wings and our horizontal stabs. Love the lines. Ferrari red was used, and it looks outstanding. Great job, Jeremy. If you're watching this, thank you so much. It looks amazing. All right, so we've done a bunch of rearranging here in the shop. During this video, you may recognize it. Our black bench, which is right there, used to be over there. Yeah, right over there. The reason we moved it over here is because it kind of just makes more sense to have it right beside our bandsaw, and just productivity. I found myself walking across the shop back and forth, which didn't make a lot of sense. So we talk a lot about productivity, and those are those little changes that make a big difference over time. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes a day over 30 days, it does make a difference. Okay, so we've got the aircraft on the table. I'm actually a little bit sketched out about this thing, and I've been a little worried to touch it. So we've got our hatches opened up here, and there's a shot of the inside. So a lot of our prep is still in place on our wings and everything. We've got our doors all taped shut, and we've got a lot of buffing compound and stuff inside there. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of cleanup inside. So like usual, we're gonna start off with our equipment. I've spent a bit of time this evening just wrapping my head around stuff because this plane was here for so long already. I'm a little bit discombobulated as far as getting started. So I've spent a bit of time tonight just kind of perusing through the manual and going through stuff and familiarizing myself with where we left off, what's left, and pulled all the equipment out that we're putting in this plane. So let's go over that stuff and take a look at everything. So we've got Electron wheels and brakes. So these are obviously anodized red. These units will be kind of a special setup and fit. So we've got obviously the wheels, the main wheels, the nose wheel, and these are a little bit different size than the stock ones. I think the mains are the same size, but we went a little bit smaller on the nose. Just so it looks proportionate. And we've got these little adapter plates. These things are adapters to make the brakes work with the main straight struts. So that is that setup right there. We've got the stuff that was sitting in our bins. We've got our pipe and just all of our parts, our stainless steel tail cone. Remember, we got that. That is super cool. And here's all of our electronics that are going in the aircraft. So for push, we've got a Zykoy X95. That is going to be an absolute monster in this teeny weeny little aircraft. We've got all of our standard jetty stuff. So an M-speed sensor, that is going in the nose of the aircraft. We've got 2 Rec 7s with 40 centimeter dipole antennas. We've got our leg mounts here for our doors. And we've got a Rex, an R3 for the on-off. Like normal, with smaller aircraft, we are doing something unheard of. I know everybody has an opinion on this. Most people can't wrap their head around the fact that this works. We have an SBEC 30 that we're using in this aircraft, and the reason we're using it in this aircraft is this aircraft's going to be powered by one, yes, I said one battery for everything, turbine and electronics. So that's our jetty stuff. Of course, the SBEC 30, and we've got a special edition red Cortex going in our beautiful red aircraft. For servos, we've got a bit of a mix mash here. Now, some of these servos I have out of the package. I've already cycled some of them. Some of these servos we had set aside, like these 599s, and they're going in the aircraft as well. Then we've got a couple other ones. But here's basically our layout that we've decided upon for this aircraft. So 599s for elevator. We've got two 9930s for the aileron, rudder a single 9930, flap 9930, speedboard 599, steering is a 747, doors are HV69s. Now I just realized that I only had two of these set aside for this aircraft, so we have to grab another one, obviously because we have our front door and our two wing doors. So we need to add one more of those to the list. But that is the equipment that is going in the aircraft. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna finish cycling our servos. All the ones that haven't been cycled yet, we'll get those guys going on our servo cycler, and then we need to update all of our Jetty products. So it's probably only the two receivers, but we're gonna take a look at all these items and make sure everything is up to date. And with that, we also create a new model in the radio, and that gets things rocking and rolling to get this thing underway. All right, so all of our items have been updated. We've got our Cortex updated as well too. Generally with the new Cortexes, they come with the current firmware. Because I think this is an older model, brand new in the box still, this required an update, so that's done. Now I think with this aircraft, the first thing we're gonna do is start doing all of our little details. Now what I mean by that is we've got things to do on this aircraft to prep and get ready. So we have to paint our trays. We've got to get our mount here done for our nose door, servo. We're going to be painting the this part of our bypass. The top is being custom painted by Jeremy as well. So this is going to be painted black, and then our top is going to have a special little touch done to it. So we've got a bunch of prep work to do before we're actually ready to start installing anything. Now, generally I would start on the back of this aircraft, work my way forward. That's probably how we're gonna do things, but the first thing we need to do is to get our doors off, get all of our hatches off, and start working on our finishing details on the inside. We're also painting our gear legs as well too, so we're going to paint these black, and they're going to look awesome with those red wheels. And just to give you an overview here of our wheel difference, so here is the stock wheels compared to the ones we got. So these ones are a little bit smaller, right, like 1/4 inch smaller maybe. And then our nose is essentially the same type of thing. So a little bit smaller on the nose wheel. So it shouldn't affect the stance of the aircraft at all because our wheels are both shrunk the same amount. Now with this aircraft, I feel like I've kind of skipped over a bunch of things because we didn't really talk about this during the build of the aircraft. And if you're just finding my channel now, we actually did the full build on this Super Bandit months ago. And this is a kit, so it's a box of parts. There's a ton of work on this thing. We did a whole build series on it. So if you're interested in that, this video is part of that playlist, but I'll put a link to that playlist down below. And it covers so much detail on this plane. So everything's electric, so the BVM purple gear has been converted to down and lock electric, so that's part of the whole package here that was done by BVM. And we will be using the Zykoy LGC22 to operate the landing gear. So that is what's actually moving the landing gear. And then our door servos are going to use those outputs right there. All right, so we got all the legs out here, and I'm just trying to jog my memory on how this is all working. It's been a few months. So the stock axles are 4.76 millimeters. And the axles in the wheels are basically 5 millimeters. So these axles, I mean, although they would work, there is quite a bit of play in the system. So the solution, and I knew this, but I just needed to jog my memory, is we take a 5 millimeter shoulder bolt, and these work perfectly with the Electron wheels. Now I can't remember exactly why, but something like there's not 5 millimeter axles available, but they do make wheels in 5 millimeters or something like that. So anyways, what we do in this case is we take a shoulder bolt, we can cut that shoulder bolt down, and this becomes our axle. Now the only thing here is this is drilled out at 4.76. We need to drill it out at 3/16, which is essentially the right dimension for the shoulder bolt. So we are going to drill out our nose and our two mains, and we're going to do that before we paint these guys black. Okay, so back to legs. It's the next day, and we need a 5 millimeter drill bit. I don't have a 5 millimeter drill bit because they need to be exactly 5 millimeters. So we picked up a nice carbide metric drill bit set today. You can never have enough drill bits, especially when you are missing the drill bit size that you need. That's when you can never have enough. So we've got our 5mm drill bit. So this is the size that we're going to be drilling out our axles with. So let's get ready to do that. The other thing we're working on right now is getting our last little bits of fuselage stuff installed here before we paint the inside of this aircraft. So we are painting the inside, I've decided on that. And this is the former for the bypass. So this is the doubler that goes on there, and then this gets sanded out to this dimension right here. So that needs to be glued in place. The other thing is our front tray here. So this front tray is designed to get glued on right there. So I'm just kind of giving this a bit of extra thought. I think that's how we're gonna work things. Not entirely sure where the battery is gonna end up, because the battery should be going in the front, I think, in the nose, and we're only using one battery. So we're probably gonna end up right there. Maybe the battery will end up here. I don't really know that yet. So we're gonna have to figure all that out. Of course, this aircraft's gonna be fairly tight because there's not a lot of space inside of the aircraft. Okay, so we got our axles drilled out here. You can see how this all works. So we've got our shoulder bolt, which is going to get cut off there, and it just captures it inside. The heads here, we can take these, grind them down, because we don't need the Allen key on that head. The only thing that's doing is capturing it. So we could essentially grind this down so it's just maybe a quarter of this actual distance. So that'll be completely disappeared, which is good. So with the legs done, we can now paint these guys. So we're gonna get these things painted, and we've already sanded them out. We're gonna spray them down with some rubbing alcohol, get them cleaned up, prep off our areas there. And on the actual legs here, we don't need to spray the upper section. This is very, very snug inside the existing purple landing gear. Same thing with the mains here. I put a mark there where we want to tape it off. And if we do paint the upper part here, that paint would just come off when you insert it. It's a really accurate fit. All right, so we've got our rear former doubler glued in place. That's done. We will take our Dremel here and sand this guy out to make those match up. So we'll get on that in a bit. And we've got our legs painted. Nothing really overly cool to look at there, just black legs. Okay, so just kind of working on some other final bits here. So this is the bypass mount. This is supposed to line up, but our holes don't line up. I'm assuming because different generations of parts or whatever, but anyways, we are going to glue this guy on. This was out to about here, and you're supposed to sand this down, which I have done because we've got our fasteners for our keepers in there. So anyways, I'm going to glue this in place just like that, and once it's nice and solid, we'll just drill our mounts out from this front side. Our angle brackets for our bypass go right in this direction right here, and the bypass screws in there. Obviously the force is sort of taken by those the mounts there, but the whole bypass system, essentially it works by all the different mounting locations. So your bypass eventually gets fixed to the front ductwork here. So, you know, it's kind of the whole airframe taking that force, not just a certain location. Like when you mount a turbine down and you've got your 2 or 3 screws holding that turbine down, it's basically those screws and then the structure around those screws that hold it in place or take all the force. And in this case on the BVM, it's kind of spread out throughout the fuselage. Did glue the maple piece here. Our door servo is going to go right in this area as kind of instructed, and we are doing things a little bit differently here now. I'm going to get this little piece glued in place. So we're going to do a little shelf. So we're going to have one tray coming across, or a little shelf coming across here, about the same width as this guy. And we're making the shelf on this side because we're going to mount our UAT right up front here. It's actually going to go this direction. And what that's going to be is that's going to be a nice short run right to our front fuel tank, which is this guy right there. And also the UAT is fairly tight if you mount it back here, but we are going to need some nose weight in this aircraft because we are putting the X95 in this aircraft. We're only using one battery in the nose, so we will need our battery essentially mounted right up front. So having this UAT here in the front section instead of back here is going to be valuable to achieve our CG. Okay, so we've got our brace glued in place. Used some high sol, tacked it in place with some CA. We've got our front pieces of wood here that they were CA'd in place, then we just went in and reinforced them with some high sol. So that stuff's good. We're gonna let that stuff cure before we start getting ready to paint this fuselage. Now we are gonna paint the inside of the fuselage, so essentially the only things we really need to take out are this front tray here, which we're gonna be painting. We're gonna take this tray and get it cut down. So our upper shelf is going to be made with a portion of this tray right here, and we'll take this tray out even though it's hidden down in the bottom. Maybe we'll leave that in there actually, because it would be nice if that's painted gray. Ultimately it's invisible because it's buried underneath the front tank. So maybe we'll just leave that in there because that's kind of part of the fuselage. And we need to sand out our back part here. So we'll get that done, and then we'll start prepping things off. So next thing we'll work on is this front tray. Now initially I was going to run this piece of wood up flush with this top here. The only thing is that top is a little bit higher than the front former right here. So if we go down a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, now it's nice and level, so our gyro is going to sit level because our gyro and receiver are sitting on that upper tray. All right, and there's just kind of a rough layup here. I just was testing the bypass to make sure it fits in our hole and we can get everything lined up. That all works good. I may have to take just a little more of this area out. I remember when I first put this together, I had this all left in, but we can't leave that in because you have to be able to get the bypass in. So probably cut that a little bit higher because this is a bit of a stretch, but we'll see. And we've got the front tank laid in there, and I've got my upper tray or my little shelf made. So that is perfect. So just wide enough for a Cortex and a Rec 7 to go up here. Probably run it out just a little bit so we can run any wires and stuff down between the fuselage and the tray, so just something like that. Now I'm going to take some filler, some polyester filler, and fill this guy in, and that's going to give us a nice smooth surface on that tray. And then we're going to pull this one out and get that sanded down and ready for paint as well. All right guys, and I think it's time for another episode of Tip Time, and this Tip Time is brought to you by trusty bent screwdriver. This is a productivity tip time, so I've got to mix up some body filler here. This is some polyester finishing putty, and we are finishing or filling up our upper tray here is the whole point. So what we're going to do is we are going to mix up some body filler, Bondo as some people know it by. This stuff sands easier than Bondo. So I like to use disposable items because it saves on cleanup. So I use I think this is probably a waxed paper plate. It's kind of got that shine to it, so it's slippery. So we'll use that. I have my Bondo knife, which is metal, and I just take it to my sanding table when I've got to clean it off. You can see the sanding marks there. It works amazing. And then we've got wax paper, which is just nice for cleanup. So when I'm done doing this and it's all cured, I can just roll all this stuff up and toss it in the garbage, and I don't have to clean up any tools. All right, so we've got both of our trays here out and sanded and ready to go. So this one, we had previously put some finishing resin over top of it, and this has all been sanded. Had to fill that in a little bit because we're going with a mini servo in this. That'll mostly be sanded out afterwards, so we just needed a little sliver in there to give it some good reinforcement. But that's the lower tray, and then this is our upper shelf as well. So that one is all sanded out and ready to prime. Now I think I've decided on the scheme we're going to go on the inside. So this is a little bold, but I think we're going, well actually I know this already. We're going to do the inside of this aircraft black, and we're going to do our trays in red, and the bypass body and the front extension will be black, and the cover on the bypass will be red. So it's going to be a really cool effect when this aircraft is opened up. It's going to look very deep, dark, and really classy looking. So excited for this. All right, so gear is all cured and good to go. These are nice and finished. We got to pull all of our prep off, of course, as well. So we'll get back to those and get our landing gear and stuff installed, but we're going to put our coat of primer on this guy first. So we're using white primer because we're going to use red paint, and that's going to give a nice finished color for the red. All right, so we've got our primer done there on our trays, so we're going to let that dry or cure, and we will paint them red. All right, so we got our trays painted gloss red to match the aircraft. Those turned out really nice. And this little setup here is kind of just a super simple setup. I was using it in some of my previous videos without the filter, so I was just holding the stuff in the box. The filter works really good, actually. It's just my vacuum goes inside there and I vent it outside the door. So in the middle of winter, super nice to be able to use this. Okay, so our fuselage is all prepped off. Here's some shots for you before we get this painted. And in the next views, everything on the inside will be black. When you're painting the fuselage like this, you want to make sure that you prep everything off. Everything. If you leave something unprepped, it guaranteed it'll get overspray on it. So we're keeping this as light as possible, so we're just going to do black. No speckles or anything like that. It's just going to be super simple, but it's going to be nice and clean on the inside. So we've got everything prepped off, so let's get this sprayed. All right, and there she is, blacked out, looking, well, very black. It's going to be a cool effect once we get the equipment in there and our red little bits and trays and bypass cover. That's going to look really darn cool. Okay, so we've got our fuselage sitting there. That's going to rest until tomorrow. And we also got our bottom hatch painted black as well too. So that's done. We're going to leave that sit till tomorrow and not touch anything or pull any prep off. We've got our trays moved over here, so they're curing or drying, and pulled the prep off of our legs. So that's everything for tonight. We're gonna resume tomorrow. We'll start putting the gear back together. All right, it's the next day. We pulled all of our prep off, and nice and bold. Black with red accents. That looks so good. That's gonna look amazing with our little bits of red trays in there, our red bypass cover. I think that was a good call. It is fast, mean, and just outstanding looking. Happy we did that. Okay, so getting the main gear put together here. So this is basically our setup. We've also got these little brake adapter pieces. These came from Danny at AeroPanda. Thank you, Danny, for doing those guys up. So this just goes in between the leg and the wheel. That prevents the brake from turning, because the brake is designed to go against a square shaft, like an electron shaft, and obviously we're dealing with a round shaft. So a couple things we need to do here. First thing we're going to do is we are going to grind down the heads of our shoulder bolts. So we're going to just basically make those nice and flat, and essentially make it just a flat tab that's only a couple millimeters deep. So we need to do that for all three. The ones we're using for the mains are a little bit longer of a shoulder than the one for the nose. That's just what I happen to have, but the nose works out perfect. The mains work out perfect as well. So that is all good. So we'll work on fabricating these guys up. All right, and we've got our axles made here for the wheels. These turned out really awesome. Basically sanded down these guys till there's about 3 millimeters left. And you can see the hex area just disappears into the bottom, and those are perfect. So we still have to make the mains, but this is the nose gear one. Also made a flat spot on the pin so it doesn't pull out or move or anything, but that is perfection. All right, guys, and I'm gonna put a couple plugs in here for you. Number one, our podcast channel, the RC Air Experience. We've been going hard on that. It's been tons of fun so far. If you're interested in podcasts or want to check it out, there's a couple links down below. Check out our RC Air Experience podcast channel. The other cool thing is definitely encourage you to check out Lighter Side of RC After Dark. After Dark is a completely separate channel, and we do basically live streams here from the shop, and the live streams are usually Saturday every couple weeks, and we do the live streams in the evening for about 2 hours. Tons of fun. You also get an opportunity to interact with us during those live streams. That's probably the best part of it. I enjoy that part the most. You guys can ask questions, answer the questions live, so encourage you to check out Lighter Side of RC After Dark as well. All right, and that's gonna wrap up video number 1 in the Super Bandit assembly portion, and we are making some wicked progress, have some good plans on this aircraft. Next video, we're gonna start working on the bypass, obviously doing some of the surfaces, installation, just continuing on with things. So thanks guys for watching the videos. If you have any questions or comments, list them down below. Love seeing those comments, and we will see you in the next video.